They said a number so large it sounds almost like a code. $314,159. A number born from the network's name, stitched to the mathematical constant pi, multiplied and elevated until it reads like a declaration of destiny. For many pioneers, GCV, the global consensus value, is more than arithmetic. It's a story the community tells itself about what pi could become. For others, it looks dangerously like a mirage. Tonight, we trace that story from its origin, through the math and the mechanics, into the tense space where idealism meets macroeconomics, and we ask a single urgent question: can a community's promise of value survive the cold accounting of the wider world? The movement did not arrive fully formed. It was rallied, organized, and championed by a single visible figure, Doris Yinpi. Beginning in early to mid-2024, Doris took the language of pioneers and translated it into a campaign, conferences, streams, groups on YouTube and Facebook, heated threads in Pi forums, all aimed at persuading two audiences at once: the network's own pioneers and the people who would one day judge Pi from outside its walls, developers, institutions, and regulators. By 2025, the momentum had coalesced into a symbol and a date. Plans circulated for a public demonstration on October 19, 2025. Not merely a rally, but a message. The community is cohesive, committed, and prepared to stand behind an internal valuation. That valuation is bold to the point of theatricality. GCV supporters set a symbolic target: $314,159 per pi. The logic is visual and poetic, pi as identity, but the implications are brutally numerical. Use the estimate the community itself has often repeated: a potential maximum supply near 100 billion pi coins. Multiply that supply by the symbolic price, and you arrive at a number so vast it forces you to look twice. Roughly $31.4 quadrillion quadrillion. To contextualize that figure is to expose the heart of the controversy. This single valuation would exceed the entire global annual GDP not by a margin, but by orders of magnitude, roughly 300 times larger than the $100 to $105 trillion world economy most economists use as a reference point. Numbers can be blunt instruments. Economics asks how that money would move. For any currency to justify a supply that large, its velocity, the number of times a coin circulates in a year, must be colossal. Using the simple money velocity identity, if Pi's broad money supply were the implied $31.4 quadrillion quadrillion, total annual transactions denominated in Pi would have to scale far beyond today's global throughput. If we anchored the comparison to a global GDP of about $105 trillion, each Pi coin would need to change hands nearly 300 times a year. That's not growth, that's hyper-idealism. Real economies grow by expanding goods, services, wages, infrastructure, and credit, not by wishful circulation. Faced with these calculations, the Pi Core team adopted a posture that is, in its way, perfectly prudent. They have not declared GCV as official. They have not placed a corporate seal on $314,159. Why? Because announcing and enforcing a fixed price is not merely a messaging decision, it is a legal one. In the United States and other jurisdictions, actions that look like price fixing or issuing financial instruments invite regulatory scrutiny. The SEC's playbook around crypto and tokens is unforgiving. Cross a line from utility to security, and the consequences can be existential. So the core team has kept distance, technically engaged, politically cautious, publicly neutral. And yet, they have not ignored the problem. They have supported the development of what proponents call a GCV stability mechanism, a technical algorithmic framework intended to anchor Pi within an internal economy rather than relying on external speculation. The design is pragmatic. Multiple data layers feed an algorithm that weighs trust signals. The automated market maker, particularly for Pi to USDC swaps, carries the highest trust weight. Deviations from the target are to be corrected through minting and burning operations, governed by Pi DAO as an algorithmic steward, a sort of programmatic central bank for the enclosed ecosystem. Independent technical examinations were scheduled and reported in early November 2025. An audit dated November 4th to 8th, 2025 claimed a near-perfect model fit with an R-squared of 0.998. On paper, the model looks clean. On paper, the mechanism stabilizes the internal ledger. but on paper and in practice are different worlds. Today, the token Pi is actively trading on multiple established cryptocurrency exchanges, with current USD values around $0.22 to $0.47 for a single Pi. For example, one source shows the price at approximately $0.221 USD, no longer confined solely to an enclosed mainnet trading scenario. Pi now appears in open trading pairs such as Pi/USDT on exchanges like Gate.io and OKX. The market capitalization data currently indicates a circulating supply of roughly 8.3 billion tokens, placing Pi's market cap in the region of 1.8 billion to 3.6 billion USD, depending on the source and price used. Therefore, the earlier statement that tokens cannot yet flow freely to public exchanges needs revision. Public trading is occurring and prices are demonstrably far below the six-figure aspirational target previously cited. That gulf between internal aspiration and external market reality is not merely a statistical curiosity, it's a psychological crucible. When pioneers tell themselves they own fortunes on paper inside the ship, they risk disengagement from the real work required to build demand outside of it. Voices inside the community have sharpened into two camps. Critics, sometimes blunt to the point of ridicule, call the entire GCV enterprise a fantasy. One prominent skeptic, who goes by Mr. Spock in community discussions, has labeled the initiative a scam, pointing out that parts of the code-base GCV supporters cite are minor or arbitrary modifications rather than systemic fixes. The fear is straightforward. When a community elevates an aspirational number into quasi-doctrine, many newcomers begin to behave as if value is already achieved. That can sap incentive to onboard merchants, build fiat rails, and actually increase transactional use. It converts effort into narrative and narrative into complacency. Supporters answer with a different logic. GCV is not supposed to be a market prophecy, it's an organizing principle. Inside the enclosed economy, having a predictable internal price simplifies barter, encourages merchant adoption within the network, and gives pioneers a shared metric around which to coordinate. In this view, PDAO and the stability mechanism enable a safe laboratory to test value anchoring techniques before tokens meet the open sea of exchanges. If you imagine the enclosed mainnet as a cruise ship with its own currency, then GCV is that ship's internal price list, meaningful on board, irrelevant to the ocean until the ship proves it can operate as a self-contained economy on a global scale. So where does that leave a pioneer who wants to act responsibly? There is no simple binary. The most defensible posture is a mix of healthy skepticism and strategic commitment. Treat GCV as a long-term, symbolic North Star while directing energy toward measurable, practical outcomes that drive real value. Think in tiers. Internally, GCV can serve as a unit of account that reduces friction inside the community. Externally, market value will be discovered and repriced by global liquidity, exchange listings, and real usage, likely in a much lower range in the near term. Reasonable, evidence-based scenarios place early open market prices in the cents to low dollar range, with multi-year climbs to the double digits only achievable via massive merchant and consumer adoption. To move from aspiration to credibility, the network must achieve several non-negotiable milestones. First, merchant onboarding must scale beyond pilot storefronts to tens or hundreds of thousands of active merchants accepting Pi across jurisdictions. Second, consumer adoption must reach into the hundreds of millions of active wallets with meaningful daily transactional frequency. Third, robust fiat on and off ramps must be implemented with regulatory compliance so that value can actually move between Pi and traditional currencies. Fourth, the mainnet must open with audited liquidity primitives and interoperable DeFi tools that work at scale. Fifth, institutional partners, banks, payment processors, and fintech platforms must participate. Their involvement is not merely about capital, but about infrastructure and trust. And finally, the core team and PIDAO must demonstrate transparent governance and verifiable economic metrics, transaction volume, liquidity depth, and audited reserves where applicable. None of these milestones are trivial. They demand time, funding, regulation, and coordination across jurisdictions that do not always agree on how to treat novel digital assets. But they are concrete and measurable, and they matter far more than any symbolic price target. There is also a governance challenge at the heart of GCV. Community consensus is a messy thing. Agreeing internally is one thing. Imposing a value that claims global scope is quite another. The disconnect between a closed-loop valuation and free market price discovery is the structural risk GCV must confront. If PDAO is to act as an algorithmic stabilizer, it needs not only code but also credibility, transparent rules, verifiable audits, and the willingness to accept market realities that might require the algorithm to change. In short, stability is as much political and social as it is technical. For pioneers navigating this reality, rhetoric must be replaced by work. Stop telling stories that create the illusion of wealth. Start building the on-ramps that allow customers and merchants to exchange real goods and services for Pi. Help construct auditable metrics. Demand clarity from governance bodies. Support regulatory engagement in your jurisdiction. If GCV functions as a tool for internal cohesion, use it that way, and do not mistake cohesion for value. Finally, consider the allegory that has helped many outsiders understand GCV, the enclosed cruise ship. On board, passengers agree that a single token buys a luxury experience valued at $314,159. Inside the ship's microeconomy, that system can function, people can trade, dApps can provide services, internal stability mechanisms can rebalance supply. But when the ship sails and starts selling tickets against the global market, the true test begins. The ship must prove it can generate real wealth and sustain trade at scales that justify that internal price. Without that proof, the internal price is merely a ledger of shared belief. The global consensus value is not simply a number. It is an expression of collective hope, technical ingenuity, and organizational ambition. It also sits atop a mountain of arithmetic that refuses to be swayed by ceremony. The GCV story is therefore a test. Can a self-organized community, operating within an enclosed technical framework, translate symbolic cohesion into verifiable economic utility? The answer will be written in the coming years, in merchant counts, in audited transaction volumes, in the quality of fiat rails, and in how transparently PyDAO manages real-world risk. Until those metrics move decisively, the sensible pioneer keeps both hands on the wheel. Treat the GCV as a motivating vision, not a guaranteed destination. Build infrastructure, demand transparency, and measure everything you do against whether it nudges the network closer to real utility. Hope is useful. It is what gets projects started. But in economics, hope without work is simply wishful accounting. If the Pi community wants to see the ship's internal price hold up once it reaches open waters, it must prove that the ship can carry and transact value on an ocean that does not respect symbolism. Before we close, let's bring this home. If you're a pioneer watching this, understand this. The story of GCV was never just about numbers. It was about belief, community, and the idea that something built from trust could stand on its own. But belief without clarity can become confusion. Today, the facts speak clearly. Pi is trading publicly. Its price is visible in US dollars across several exchanges. And while it's far from the once imagined $314,159, it's finally part of the real market, where value is tested, not declared. This is not a loss, it's a moment of reckoning, a point where emotion must give way to information. So, to every pioneer still holding faith, hold it wisely, ask questions, verify claims, and ground your expectations in data, not in dreams dressed as certainty, because the real strength of Pi has never been in speculation, but in the people who built its network one invitation at a time. If this video brought you clarity, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with another pioneer. Let truth circulate as freely as the tokens we all hope to see one day move across the open blockchain. Because clarity is power, and the more of it we share, the stronger this community becomes.